Hey, Dan Ariola here, president of Inktel. Today on the show, we got Miami historian Abel Sanchez, and he's also the man behind Instagram Miami Stadium. I hope you enjoy the show. Take care.
This episode is brought to you by Buena Vista Creative, Miami's premier digital marketing agency. Visit buenavistacreative.com for more info on how Buena Vista can help your business increase revenue and create the brand and digital presence it deserves. Video and podcast production, web and app development, search engine and social media marketing, logo creation, outdoor, print, swag, and more.
All right, Abel Sanchez, my man.
What's going on, brother?
Good to have you in here.
Good to be here.
Been wanting to get you in the studio. I'm all set. I got my Miami Stadium drip T-shirt from your collection.
I like it.
Pumped to chat, talk all cool Miami stuff.
Hell yeah.
So, Abel, it's funny because when people ask me about you, I go, if you want to know anything that is just cool, hip, historical Miami, and you can go down any one of these avenues from politics, our neighborhoods, to sports and beyond sports. It's not just that we have an NFL team or an NBA team. It's, you know, the from the Negro leagues to minor league baseball to on and on and on and on to really the arts, right?
Right.
From music, comedy, culture, and whatnot. It's pretty amazing that you're sort of the custodian of all this stuff, right?
So I'm told.
And man, where did this, like, you're a Miami guy, right? So, but where did the love of just sort of how you dive into these subjects come from? Where did that start?
Man, I get asked that. That's the question, right? I've always been a curious person.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, I've always said, don't be a tourist in your own town, right? You grow up here and there's so much stuff that you pass by 1,000 times and you don't know what it is. And just always having that curiosity, even as a kid. And it's just something that to this day, I'm always just researching and digging and just trying to devour content. And just when you think you've learned it all, there's always something that, man, I didn't know that.
It's crazy, man, because, you know, Miami's evolving. I was gone for a long time, moved here in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, these stories that you share online on your Instagram page are just so important. Specifically, my friends who have recently moved here, one of the first things are like, dude, I'm just like learning about Miami. I find out, because Miami's loaded, as you know, with crazy stories. Yeah. Where do I go? And I go, well, you can just start, if you have Instagram, go to Miami Stadiums. And it's not just about baseball. It's about, you know, your daily, multiple times a day, updates on just history of our community and where it's at and potentially where it's going.
You summed it up.
Yeah.
It's funny. It started as a baseball page. You know, really the foundation's the Miami Stadium. And then it just naturally kind of grew and evolved out of that to just reflect more like my interest and things in the community. And I always say Miami Stadium was where history and culture collide.
Yeah.
And the merch is a reflection of that. So it started with that, and that's the handle, obviously. But then it became, people would even write me, oh, do the Orange Bowl, do Miami Arena. So I'm like, okay, there's no Florida Marlins stuff. And then, art, and I like graffiti. And so it just naturally kind of organically grew out of that, with the baseball being the base of it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Most people, if you ask them about the Marlins, they'll be like, yeah, it's a team that started in the 90s.
Right.
And it's got a crazy history here, much before the 90s.
1956.
1956, and it started what, as a minor league team, right?
So as a AAA team, they were in the International League, the IL, and it was actually originally an organization from Syracuse. It was the Sky Chiefs or something like that they were called. And then they got bought out and they moved down here, and Bill Veeck, the old legendary Bill Veeck, he launched it in
Disco Derby Night, right?
Disco Derby Night, that guy, the Penny Beer Night or whatever.
Penny Beer Night,
that guy. He was brought in with a few other people, and they renamed that team, and it became the Miami Marlins at Miami Stadium.
And then Miami Stadium alone, you're right, it has all these great stories of just sort of Miami past and then presence, and then what Alapata ended up becoming. And then you went up. What was that process like when you went to make it a historic mark and to get the marker? I mean, give us a little history about sort of Miami Stadium, and then how you went about going to get the marker.
Miami Stadium, it was a game changer, because my boy Rolando Llanes of Civica, who did the documentary we talked about, White Elephant, he always refers to it as the most significant baseball-only ballpark, kind of stadium since Yankee Stadium. And it really was, architecturally speaking, from the horseshoe design to the cantilevered roof. So you're looking at architecture, you're looking at sport, everything kind of, from the Marlins to the Brooklyn Dodgers used to train there.
Wow.
Yeah. Everyone knows Vero Beach, which Dodger Town, but they used to come down and play their games because they didn't have a stadium. So you got everyone from Jackie Robinson, on down in Allapattah. So from the Dodgers to the park, it's just so much history leading into the Orioles that finally when the stadium was demolished, nothing was put there.
Yeah.
The stadium had a rich history from 1949 to 1990 with, my research found over 150 Hall of Famers step foot in Miami Stadium. To put that in perspective, the Hall of Fame has about 340 members. That's crazy,
That's
dude.
crazy.
So I'm like, something's got to be done. I noticed the markers, and long story short, I went to the state.
Mm-hmm.
What do I got to do? Well, you got to raise the funds.
Yeah.
Okay, city wasn't, we talked about it. So did a GoFundMe, raised the $2,500, took it back to the state, and I had to present a case.
Yeah.
My research, everything, send it, email everything to them, and they approved it unanimously.
Yeah, so the marker's still there in Allapattah. Allapattah from 1940s to today has changed so much.
Oh, drastically. I mean, at the core, there's still, but what happened now is obviously I think Wynwood kind of ran its course. God bless it, it's still there, but, obviously the rents and everything went up. So they started looking, where are we going to go? Little River kind of had their eye on that, but mostly people have been drifting west back towards Allapattah. And, they're calling it the Wild District now or whatever, west of Wynwood, which drives me nuts because I'm like, no, it's Allapattah.
Yeah,
Wynwood's Wynwood, this is Allapattah, and AP, as they say. And the jewel of AP back in the day was Miami Stadium.
Miami Stadium, no story in Miami is a true Miami story without it being a little crazy, right?
Absolutely.
Baseball wasn't the only thing going on at that stadium.
Oh, no. I mean, they had everything from concerts to various events and rallies. And culturally speaking, I mean, we'd mentioned earlier, there was actually a murder that took place at that ballpark. Sadly, during a minor league game. 1980 was a very hot year for Miami, as they say, la calle está caliente. And Allapattah was no different, and Miami Stadium was no different. And during a doubleheader between, I think it was the Marlins, actually, and the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, a guy who lived across the street above the market that's still there, it's the Miami Stadium Market. And he got into it with some dudes. They chased him out of the stadium. Long story short, he pulls a gun, turns around, whacks these two guys, and goes back to his apartment above the market. So they literally go and arrest him. He had mental issues.
Yeah.
I think he's still locked up. And so you had everything from that to political rallies to the Nicaraguan refugees and everything. So yeah, the history of that stadium goes way deeper than just baseball, which is a rich history to begin with.
Yeah, and when you think about that stadium, and then of course I got to ask you about the OB, the Orange Bowl.
Oh man,
where you're about my age. We grew up, right?
Yeah.
Between the Hurricanes and the Dolphins and concerts, and there isn't another stadium like that, right?
No.
Where at that closed end of the end zone, and as a fan and as a visitor, if you showed up there,
oh dude,
you probably worry about your life.
Or your car.
And you're parking in people's backyards, remember?
The no block.
Yeah, the no blocky, $10 or whatever.
$10,
The mystery meat that the vendors would sell you.
Cat, maybe.
Maybe cat if you were
kebabs.
lucky. Cat kebabs, carne gato. And then it's funny because I remember about that time, rap music started.
Yes.
And I remember going to the stadium and they would play the rap songs with the bad words in them.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, where are we?
Oh, no, you got the explicit.
You got the explicit,
which
right.
actually made perfect sense in the OB.
Right.
Because from what you saw from the parking lot in the tailgate to the bathrooms inside, bro.
The troughs, right?
The troughs and the things you would see in the stalls and
and you felt the stadium shaking. I remember that. Like pieces of concrete would fall and you're like, what is this?
Particles would come down and it would leak. And it would rattle. And I always say I knew guys who lived around, there in Little Havana and right across the street that say that during a big game, there's a big play and it would get, people start, remember we stomp, that the floor of their house would vibrate. So that's how crazy that's it. There was no home field advantage, I think, like that place.
No, not like the place, nor will there ever be.
No.
And it wasn't even a college atmosphere that was just different than everybody else. People forget. The University of Miami is actually a pretty small school.
Yeah.
And so you'd be like, the fan base isn't really even students. It's just like these Miami people from all over. And
it was a zoo. That was the beauty of it.
It was
Everybody
awesome. That's
would
what
come
made it so
together,
cool.
to root for the Canes or the Finns in that place, and it was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got this deep love for Miami and Miami history. And then one day you said, hey, I'm going to put up this IG page dedicated to sports. And then it just took on a life of its own. What
really
happened?
Did. I still don't know what happened, dude. It was Thanksgiving 2016. Mm-hmm. And I was looking for stuff on Miami Stadium and I couldn't really find anything. And I'm like, man, there's nothing out here. Old Florida Marlins stuff, nothing out here. I go, let me check the handle. And I saw that nobody had it. The little green check mark comes up. I go, oh, this shit's mine now. Like, okay, start posting from little by little, 20 followers, 50 followers. And it was all very organic and just, I always say the page is the outlet. Like people say, you do a lot of research. I go, yeah, but if the page didn't exist, it would all be on my laptop for me to geek out to.
Right.
It's just to show to my friends or whatever. So I have this like vault filled with content and I'm always digging and I'm like, oh, this is a good way to let it out. And I'll be amazed if, even 50 people give a shit. And here we are. I just hit 10,000 people the other day. And everybody from Mike Piazza to Mickey Rourke follow me. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And it's because I think it hits people, those memories of growing up.
That's even though I knew you, that's how I started following it. And I think I saw, I don't know, some football player wearing the shirt. So of course I had to buy the shirt.
Yeah.
And then I started following it. And then it just kind of took a life of its own because it wasn't about sports. It was just about Miami and cool Miami stuff and history and education and, what have you. And then, like I said, you mentioned that the community is the one that gives you the pictures, right? These aren't even your pictures, right? That's like the fans.
I dig everything. People send me stuff. Okay. They do. Oh yeah, time to time. And I love the personal stuff that they send, the stuff that you're not going to find anything, those exclusive gems. But it's like literally just a vault. And I used to do the old microfiche. You remember when you go to the library, you pull So I was doing the microfiche till I was half blind. And then online digging. And I just always trying to find the stuff that's different to what everyone else has.
Yeah.
I love you might have seen these 20 photos of the OB, but you haven't seen this one, or this kind of perspective. And what fascinates me is that it's not just the photos themselves. People actually read and go, man, we like the information that you pack in there, kind of like these little blasts of history. So there's always that balance of how do you make it entertaining and educational.
Yeah, I always read. Mickey Rourke writes, if it's really Mickey Rourke, right? He writes on your page every day.
Yeah, I talked to that guy. He's amazing, man. I still can't believe it. And, he went to Miami Beach High.
Yeah.
He grew up down here. He's originally from Schenectady. And whenever he comments or he'll drop in, people will still, to this day, like, hey, man, is that like really?
The real guy, yeah.
The real, like, yeah, it's him. And he's like low-key one of my biggest supporters.
It's crazy.
Man, it's crazy to have any kind of communication.
And so,
with him.
And you told me that like the families of some of these neighborhoods, or if you post an old little store or what, they reach out to you and share more and more
all the
stories
time,
of community.
Man. From the market, the Miami Stadium Market, to I just posted a mosque in Little Haiti, and the folks who run that mosque wrote me, and they were like, verbatim, they go, thank you for your fair and factual account of our mosque, and you're welcome to come by anytime. So it's like, oh man, it's always nice when you get it right, or you do something in Dorsey Park in Overtown, or Clyde Killen's home, and folks in Liberty City have written me, oh man, we saw that post you did, and you got it right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, because you don't want to mess anything up, you want to make sure that you're telling the story as it is, as honestly as it is. And I'm just amazed how many people are watching, man.
And it's crazy. I don't think people think of Miami as sort of a music town, but it's got a rich history of music.
Insane. Criteria Studios alone in North Miami, which is ground zero. They've been there since 1958. And, I ended up getting 2 tours of that place, which they don't even do because God bless Trevor Fletcher, who's the manager. His mom used to be the secretary there.
Wow.
So he grew up at Criteria. He ended up working his way up, and he runs the place now. And I was talking to him. I had tagged him on a few photos, and I didn't realize I was talking to the manager.
Right.
I was talking to, and I said, man, I would love to see your place, whatever. And he's like, oh, well, hit me up next week, something. I'm like, who am I speaking with? He goes, this is Trevor. I didn't realize I was talking to the guy who runs, and he got me in there, and the history of that, and all the albums from Hotel California to Layla.
Yeah.
Miami has an incredible Churchill's Pub, the live
Churchill's
music
Pub,
scene,
the
you
Bee
know.
Gees.
The Bee Gees, oh man, the Bee
Then
Gees.
the Doors get arrested here.
Oh yeah,
famous
the
story.
famous Morrison incident at the
Yeah.
Dinner Key Auditorium in Coconut Grove, man. I mean, look at that right there. All the concerts, Miami Stadium, everyone from the Who to the Beastie Boys played at Miami Stadium.
Wow, it's amazing, man.
It's amazing, man.
So this community, how did you get into the apparel? You weren't an apparel guy, right?
No, buying, loved
Yeah, right.
it. Grew up on the beach back in the day when, here's a name, Don Busweiler and Pervert Clothing, the Animal Farm and those guys.
Yeah.
So I always loved streetwear. But eventually, no, just, always enjoyed like seeing the different brands. And it wasn't till through the page, again, the guys from Cushy Gigs, who's the old MSG cartel, hit me up and they follow me and they're like, we should do a shirt together, which is the one you're wearing. That's the flagship, which is the photo that I have. And we faded it and we said, all right, let's put it out there. And this was 2.5 years ago. And here we are, 15 shirts deep, still going, man.
And you told me that there's a certain element that you're looking for in the design. You're listening to the community, right? You call it the community, not your clients. And and there goes a lot of process into it. And there's like certain labels of, Miami stereotypes that you don't want in it. Like that how did that creative process, walk me through the process of designing these shirts?
Like most things in life, I think that work, it's not always planned.
Yeah,
It's just kind of organic. We sat down the way we're sitting here with Cushy, and I'll never forget the first time we finally chopped it up at the Honeycomb Hideout, as they call it, in Alapato, which ironically enough, their building where I do all my shirts, and my shirt says made in Alapato on the inside.
Very cool.
It literally is. It's right up the road from where the stadium was. You could walk there. So talk about full circle, man. It's crazy. So we went in and we chopped it up like this. And finally, after an hour of talking about Miami and sports and culture and graffiti, I was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, look, and it's no disrespect to anybody, and it's all stuff that's near and dear to my heart. But I said, no cafecitos, no flamingos, no dominoes, no pastelitos, and please, no 305, no Dade County this. I love it, but you see it, it's so oversaturated. I go, we have to do this original. I would rather fail with my own shit than succeed with anyone else's. And a lot of my shirts are just snapshots of my childhood. Yeah. It's my vision that I tell them, like the $10 no block. We all lived that.
We all lived that, right? You only knew that if you grew up here in that time.
So people ask me, is that a photo that you use? Like, no, that's just, it's from my head that you relay. And so that kind of is my process, is just trying to do something that's very Miami without necessarily having all the kind of cliche elements that you see all over the place.
These guys approach you about doing the design, you roll out the shirts, and then before you know it, you got 15 shirts.
Yeah.
Do you have more? What's in the future for Abel? You have more shirts?
Quite a bit. I can't quite, my head, man.
You got a lot going on in there.
And I'm pacing.
Yeah.
I got one cooking right now. So we're going to start the year right. And then I got a couple more after that. I already got like a few on deck and one going right now. And it's just exploring all the things that are really like real Miami culture.
You go beyond Miami culture. I got the sense you're one of those guys that like you get something in your head and you're gonna run through a wall until it gets done, and you get passionate about projects.
You're good.
you got passionate about a project. Someone who I love as well is Eddie Van Halen and Van Halen.
Yeah.
How did that all come about?
Again, a random thing. I love Ed. That was the band. Everybody has that band or that guy growing up. And back in the day, VH, especially with Roth, man, they were like superheroes.
Yeah.
There was nothing bigger. And Eddie, there was nothing, Ed was the guy. He was like the Michael Jordan of guitars, like Ed and everyone else. And I had friends who were like, dude, you know a lot about those guys. You should, write a book or do something. And long story short, I ended up interviewing people and kind of piecing it together and did this Van Halen 101 project, which I put out back in like 2005. And that led me to Ed in 2008 when he went on the reunion tour, and I got invited to the show through him and his lady, Janie, who was his publicist / girlfriend at the time. Talk about surreal.
Crazy, man.
Crazy, man.
Crazy. And then the bats. I love the story about the bats.
Oh,
as a baseball fan,
yeah.
As someone who I've actually been to the Louisville Slugger Museum.
It's cool.
How the hell did you get involved with bats?
Another one, I was up in Cooperstown.
Yeah.
Talk about that pilgrimage we did to the Hall of Fame, and came out of there inspired, and they had a baseball and movies and baseball kind of display. And I go, nobody's really done like souvenir bats or commemorative bats for baseball films. So, okay, let me contact Louisville Slugger. Contacted them. They said, well, you got to contact film studios, obviously, to get licensing rights if you want to do Major League or anything like that. So kind of bounced back and forth between studios and Slugger. And finally, I secured some rights, talked to the president of Slugger, and he was like, dude, if you get the rights, I'll get you the bats. And he kept his word. And so for 15 years, I had this little side project where I did bats for Major League, The Natural, Bull Durham. And I even did mini bats for Zach Wilde, the guitar player, because he's a big baseball fan. So we did some Black Label Society minis. And, yeah, surreal.
You have one of the most interesting things on your Instagram page is that you do write some long form. It's probably the only IG page that I actually read the long form. What is your secret sauce? Like, how do you do it? What's the cadence? What's the hashtag? Like, what's your formula without giving me your secret sauce?
You know, the truth is, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, nah, man, 99% of that is just a first take stream. It's straight off the dome. Mm-hmm. You know, there's an old saying, if you cannot explain it simply, you do not know it well enough.
Right.
And so it's how do you condense it and just pack it in there? It's almost a Twitter 140 characters or less approach into that. And I'm amazed because we're such a visual and, you know, attention spans are so short where I get people like the photos, but I get a lot of feedback on we love, you know, oh, I didn't know this or that. And I'm like, man, people are reading. They're actually reading all these, you know, comment sections and the little captions that go with it. So somehow it just comes out that way, you know, just naturally. And as long as you get it right, you know, hopefully, and you know, not too many spelling errors, and folks seem to gobble it up, man. It just seems to be the right amount.
You're the Miami historian. I got to ask, where do you see Miami 10, 15 years from now? It's very different from where you and I grew up. Yeah. What does Miami look like in, you know, whatever, 2035 or something like that?
Yeah, and I always say, but you know, my Miami, our Miami, where we came up, it's probably a lot more high rises, a lot more mixed use, sprinkled with a few Russian oligarchs here or there, you know, and hey, everybody's cool, man. You know,
they'll always have characters.
You're always going to have characters that we don't lack in that department. And, you know, the traffic will still be the Palmetto, will still be backed up. It'll still be, you know, but I think it's just a lot of the history. I mean, I'm all for progress, but you have to have a balance because otherwise everything becomes a blur. It looks like one giant strip mall, or it's all CVS's and Starbucks and Chase Banks. Yeah. And God bless them, there's room for everybody, but you start losing your identity. So you would hope that there would be a balance, but I just think it's going to be more construction and more traffic and an influx of more people coming in. I
think a lot of good things ahead. I think Miami's best days are ahead of it, but you're right. We got to keep some of this stuff, the flavor that you give, that authentic Miami, cool Miami stuff, right?
All right. You know, the old Miami shit, as we say, it's like, it's all about that balance. I say for being a historian, my feet are firmly planted in 2023.
Right.
Yeah, I look forward, but you have to know where you've been to know where you're going. And it's cool to kind of pass that down.
Yeah. Abel, thank you for coming in.
Oh, man.
But before you go, my friend, I have a couple of rapid fire questions.
All right.
Are you ready?
I better be.
Okay. Van Halen, Sammy Hagar, or David Lee Roth?
Love them both, but Dave. Classic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pete Rose in the hall or out of the hall?
Ooh, you got me a tough one there, man. And I love Pete, but I would vote him, but he signed the paper and he broke the one cardinal rule that you can't. I think they're going to wait for him to die, and then he might get in posthumously.
But do you think he should be in or out?
Me personally, how do you not vote for Pete?
You have to, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, he was a baller, man. All-time hit king. I mean, come
Charlie
on.
Hustle, my man.
Charlie Hustle, bro. Yeah.
All right. Best purchase you've made under $100?
Best purchase under $100? Oh, my thermal printer for the labels for shipping, man. I got it on Cyber Monday, literally for like $99.99. So by a penny, and that thing's dope because I don't have to buy ink or anything. Yeah, I'm good.
All right, one more question. Pacino or De Niro?
Oh, man, another one. Two giants. Ooh, man. Might have to go with Bobby D on that one.
Bobby D over Al Pacino, Mr. Scarface, Mr. Miami.
Yeah, it's tough, man. You know, and Michael Corleone, Tony Montana, so many characters, man. Oh my God, that's a brutal question.
You go with Bobby D. All right, I'll let you off the hook. Abel, where can people find your gear?
Easy. You can go to the Miami Stadium Instagram. The link is in the bio. If you want to go to the page directly, it's, miamistadium.bigcartel.com.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Bro, thank you.
Good to have you, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
Take care, bud.